This is also a time of change for my family. Catherine becomes Queen Consort. In recognition of her own loyal public service, I know she will bring to the demands of her new role the steadfast devotion to duty on which I have come to rely so much.
Hey, Royal Watchers! Welcome back to our space, where the British Crown never fails to leave us breathless with fresh drama and shocking turns. Today, we're diving into a headline that rattled both palace walls and living rooms across the globe. Just when it seemed the royal stage had calmed after a major international visit, and whispers swirled about a senior figure's health, King Charles delivered words that flipped the script entirely. He thrust Catherine, the Princess of Wales, into the center spotlight, positioning her clearly as the path to becoming the next Queen Consort. This isn't ordinary royal chatter. It's a bold power move that signals deeper shifts behind castle gates. We're talking tradition under strain, health concerns stirring doubts, and a carefully designed strategy too sharp to ignore. The royal family reminded the world once again they play the long game. And Catherine has suddenly become the key piece on the board. Picture the date, September 19th, 2025. The buzz hadn't cooled from President Donald Trump's high-profile state visit to the UK. Castle glowed with pomp, polished silver, and enough ceremony to stop traffic. King Charles and Queen Camilla stood side by side with America's former president in a spectacle that looked flawless. Yet beneath the glittering smiles and polished handshakes, the palace was already plotting its next act. Because behind the grandeur, a storm was brewing. Palace insiders leaked whispers of Queen Camilla's sudden health scare. Reports claimed she suffered acute sinusitis, but this was no ordinary cold. The illness forced her to withdraw from key duties, raising fresh doubts about her ability to keep up with the crown's relentless demands. Some close voices suggested her struggle ran deeper, pointing to exhaustion and a long recovery casting shadows over her reign as Queen Consort. Then, like lightning out of nowhere, came King Charles's speech. This was no routine palace update. It marked his second major address since taking the throne after Queen Elizabeth II's passing in 2022. The timing was impeccable. Just as Trump's motorcade pulled out of Windsor and whispers about Camilla's condition swirled, Charles seized the moment and dropped a bombshell. He elevated Catherine, Princess of Wales, with words that made it crystal clear. She wasn't just by the crown's side, she was stepping directly into its future. His words carried weight, echoing the same gravity as his very first address, the one honoring his late mother while laying out his royal vision. But this time, Charles sounded sharper, urgent, determined. Years on the throne had given him scars and perspective. He spoke openly about the monarchy's fight to remain relevant in modern life. He acknowledged his own health challenges and his wife's struggles, exposing the fragile balance behind the palace's golden walls. Then came the moment that froze royal watchers. In the middle of his speech, Charles shifted the spotlight onto Prince William and Catherine. The way he framed Catherine's future as Queen Consort felt powerful, urgent, and impossible to dismiss. Commentators were stunned, asking the same questions. Why now? What drove such a bold declaration? The answer lay into colliding forces: Camilla's leaked health struggles and the storm stirred by Trump's high-profile visit. This wasn't idle talk of titles. It was a blend of compassion, continuity, and cold strategy unfolding in front of the world. To grasp the true impact of Charles's words, we rewind to the foundations. The death of Queen Elizabeth II on September 8, 2022, closed a historic chapter and thrust the crown into a new era overnight. Just one day later, Charles gave his first address as king. A speech etched into royal history for its calm strength during national grief. He honored his beloved mother, pledged lifelong service to the crown, and with one stroke confirmed Camilla as Queen Consort, a title once controversial but finally embraced by the public. That same speech elevated William and Catherine to Prince and Princess of Wales, planting seeds for their destiny in the spotlight. Fast forward 3 years to 2025, and cracks were visible in the royal fortress. Charles's cancer diagnosis in 2024 already sparked hard conversations about his health, succession, and the monarchy's future. Now, with Camilla sidelined by illness, missing events like the Duchess of Kent's funeral, the palace could no longer hide the truth. The narrative was shifting fast, and Catherine suddenly stood as the undeniable figure waiting in the wings. Leaks painted a worrying picture of Camilla's slow recovery. Could she really withstand the crushing weight of royal life long-term? Against this backdrop, Charles's second address from Buckingham Palace carried far more than routine updates. He circled back to the themes of his first speech, but spoke with raw honesty, admitting the toll royal duty takes on both body and family. That's when Catherine's rise came into focus, with blazing clarity. Charles praised her grace, her tireless advocacy for early childhood causes, and her unwavering support for William. But then he went further, framing her as the future Queen Consort, not simply William's partner, but a national inspiration. Beside him, this was no flattery. It was a signal, loud and clear, that the palace was preparing for what lay ahead. With Camilla's health uncertain, Catherine was being positioned as the steady hand ready to guide the crown forward. Speculation had been building for months. Was Charles laying a path to accelerate succession? His words didn't announce abdication, but they carefully prepared the stage, making Catherine's readiness impossible to deny. It was a reminder that the monarchy bends tradition when survival demands it, balancing grandeur with reality, illness, and time. And just as the royal house wrestled with these questions, a wild card shook the scene: President Donald Trump's state visit, September 16th to 18th, 2025. This wasn't a casual diplomatic drop-in. It was a royal spectacle. Carriages rolled through Windsor, chandeliers glistened above lavish banquets, and King Charles played host to Trump in a show meant to project alliances and power. Trump, fresh from his 2024 election comeback, heaped praise on the grandeur, calling the pageantry unmatched, while billion-dollar deals loomed in the background. Tech and investment deals were sealed quietly behind the glitter. Yet, as cameras captured polished smiles, palace tension simmered beneath the surface. With Camilla's health looming like an unspoken shadow, yes, she attended the main events, but whispers persisted. Her recent absences had already triggered leaks about her condition. Insiders murmured that what the palace branded as sinusitis was really something larger, deeper fatigue. Worsened by the stress of her husband's own health battles, it all added fragility to the carefully staged royal picture. Trump, ever the showman, stirred his own spectacle, chatting with guards, breaking minor protocol, even striding ahead when tradition called for restraint. But while his antics drew headlines, the true story unfolded inside Windsor's gilded halls. Catherine was quietly stepping up, dazzling guests at banquets, sliding seamlessly into the spotlight while Camilla conserved her strength. Her visibility was striking, her poise undeniable, and when Charles later gave his address, it felt as though his words were drawn directly from what the world had just witnessed. In that address, Charles began by spotlighting the monarchy's role on the global stage, its reach in diplomacy, its ability to steady alliances across borders. But then came a sharp turn. He shifted from international bonds to family legacy. That's when he dropped the line that changed everything. Catherine, the Princess of Wales, was the consort who would carry this royal story into the future. The timing was flawless. What appeared to be a diplomatic victory with Trump became something far greater, a platform for royal evolution. Trump's glittering visit turned into the perfect backdrop for Charles's boldest move yet. But then came the human twist. Queen Camilla's health leaks in mid-September painted a far darker picture than palace officials admitted. Publicly, her team blamed acute sinusitis, issuing polished regrets for each skipped event. Behind closed doors, insiders whispered her state was far from good, pointing to ongoing fatigue, possible complications from earlier struggles, and an image of a consort whose stamina was fading fast. This was no ordinary sick day. It was a harsh reminder of what it means to be a 70-year-old royal expected to withstand relentless duty and endless scrutiny. Once the tabloids caught wind, speculation ignited like wildfire. Would Camilla step back permanently? And what would this mean for Charles? Already juggling his own recovery while steadying the crown, the questions grew heavy, impossible to ignore. Though the palace confirmed Camilla was strong enough to attend Trump's state visit, the truth is, the damage was already done. Her earlier absence cracked open a conversation that couldn't be closed again. How sustainable was her role in the long run? Insiders whispered that Charles, always 10 steps ahead, saw this as the moment to steady succession and silence doubts. In his speech, he spoke of Camilla warmly, praising her loyalty and resilience. But then, deliberately, he turned to the next generation, spotlighting Catherine's role in the monarchy's future. He didn't erase Camilla's presence, he reframed it. The message was precise. This wasn't about sidelining his queen, but about ensuring the survival of the crown. It was strategy wrapped in reassurance, vulnerability layered with strength, and it worked. Royal watchers felt the tide turning. The leaks about Camilla's health, paired with Trump's grandeur, transformed what should have remained private into a public turning point. Suddenly, Catherine's path as consort felt not just possible, but near within reach, and all roads led to September 19, 2025, when Charles took the microphone at Buckingham Palace. His words carried the weight of history, yet sharper and more future-focused this time. He opened by reflecting on recent events, the Trump visit as proof the crown still anchored global ties. But his tone quickly shifted inward, admitting the personal toll duty had exacted on both himself and those closest to him. Then came the bombshell that sent the press reeling. Charles declared, "As we look to the future, I am heartened by the steadfast support of my son William and his wife Catherine, who will one day lead this nation as king and queen consort." This wasn't suggestion, it was proclamation, a coronation of intent spoken for the world to hear. And Charles didn't stop at titles. He laid out exactly why Catherine was ready: her empathy, her relentless dedication to mental health, her devotion to families. He painted her as the perfect partner for a modern monarch. The image was powerful, the message unmistakable. The future of the crown had a face, and it was Catherine's. Charles didn't ignore the elephant in the room. Subtly, he tied his words to Camilla's health, hinting at the need for fresh energy within the royal machine. The response was immediate. Commentators called it a thunderclap moment, one of the rare times the monarchy peeled back the curtain on succession, by invoking echoes of his earliest speeches after Elizabeth II's death. Charles bridged the past with an uncertain future, reminding Britain that the crown endures by adapting. This was no abdication, it was empowerment. His words positioned Catherine as the living bridge to a new chapter, mixing tradition with rare transparency. Suddenly, the monarchy's future felt not just secure, but alive. Catherine's journey to this point has been marked by steady resilience. From her 2011 wedding to William, she transformed from graceful bride to cornerstone of the monarchy. Her advocacy for early childhood, her championing of mental health, and her fierce protection of family privacy earned global respect. But Charles's address pushed her even higher. This wasn't just acknowledgement, it was confirmation in every sense but title. She was being affirmed as the next queen consort. Palace insiders described her reaction as calm, determined, unshakable, balancing motherhood of George, Charlotte, and Louis with expanding duties. She has carried the weight with poise, especially as Camilla's role grew fragile. And during Trump's high-stakes visit, Catherine once again proved her diplomatic instincts. Her exchanges with Melania Trump weren't merely polite, they were polished, poised, and widely praised. Catherine's exchanges during Trump's high-stakes state visit were more than polite gestures. They were masterclasses in diplomacy. Cameras captured her every smile, every perfectly measured word, every moment where warmth blended with protocol. Her interactions with Melania Trump in particular drew attention, striking the perfect balance of elegance and relatability. Commentators around the globe noted how, in a single evening, Catherine managed to project the monarchy's centuries-old prestige while making it feel modern and human. In that sense, she became the crown's quiet superpower, soft diplomacy personified. And then came Charles's words. They did not merely recognize Catherine, they validated her. In front of dignitaries, politicians, and the watching world, he spotlighted her compassion, her resolve, and her ability to steady the institution at a time of profound fragility. This was not ceremonial flattery. It was a deliberate recalibration. With both Charles and Camilla wrestling with the toll of age and illness, Catherine's rising visibility was nothing less than a lifeline. She represented stability. She embodied renewal. But beneath the grandeur lay a deeply personal triumph. In 2024, Catherine herself had endured her own private battle with cancer. The ordeal could have diminished her. Instead, she emerged stronger, sharper, and more determined. To see her now, standing as the poised Princess of Wales, was to see resilience incarnate. That personal history, paired with her public grace, gave Charles's declaration extraordinary weight. The monarchy's future wasn't being handed to an untested figure. It was being entrusted to someone who had already faced storms and prevailed. The response was electric. Within minutes of Charles's address, social media ignited. Hashtags like #QueenCatherine and #FutureConsort trended across continents. News anchors interrupted scheduled programming to dissect the implications. Analysts called it a thunderclap in succession planning, one of the rare moments where the monarchy spoke with unusual candor about its future. Yet not all voices were celebratory. Traditionalists bristled, accusing Charles of overshadowing Camilla, just as her health struggles had earned public sympathy. For them, the timing felt calculated, even ruthless. Still, politically and symbolically, the move was seismic. The palace had stolen the spotlight from Westminster and Washington in a single stroke. The AI energy and trade deals inked during Trump's visit should have dominated the news cycle. Instead, it was Charles's proclamation that owned the headlines. Once again, the monarchy had reminded the world that its reach extended far beyond pomp and pageantry. It was still a force able to dominate the global conversation. Inside the family, the ripple effects were just as profound. William's position as heir now carried heavier weight, sharpened by Charles's public framing of Catherine as his partner in destiny. But rather than straining under that responsibility, the couple appeared strengthened by it. Together, William and Catherine radiated a unity that doubled the monarchy's resilience. They were no longer merely symbols of continuity, they were the face of what came next. Supporters hailed the shift as visionary. This, they argued, was a monarchy slimming down, modernizing, and aligning itself with values of health, family, and balance. Critics countered that it was too fast, too visible, that Catherine's prominence risked breaking the mystique of gradual succession. Yet as Charles's words echoed across palace halls and digital screens, one truth solidified. Catherine's path to Queen Consort was no longer a distant inevitability. It was a vivid, present promise, and the implications stretched far beyond titles. Charles's announcement, layered with Trump's glittering visit and Camilla's fragile health, marked a watershed moment in the monarchy's modern story. It was a recalibration of bridge, spanning grief, uncertainty, and renewal. Charles, with a lifetime of duty etched into his every gesture, had managed to both honor the indelible memory of his mother and chart a course for the crown's survival in the 21st century. His wisdom, tempered by vulnerability, signaled that this monarchy was willing to evolve under scrutiny. From this moment forward, Catherine's trajectory accelerated. Imagine her spearheading initiatives, with newfound authorities expanding her early years advocacy, launching sweeping programs for family mental health, and blending her lived experiences as a mother with her responsibilities as a royal. The world had glimpsed these possibilities during the Trump visit. Her easy poise with global leaders hinted at what a full-fledged Queen Consort might look like. Now, those glimpses promised to become daily realities. The ripple did not rest solely on Catherine's shoulders. William's earth-shot prize campaigns, focused on sustainability, seemed destined to intertwine with Catherine's work for children and families. Together, they offered a holistic vision of Britain one, both compassionate and environmentally conscious. Their children, too, would grow up within this recalibrated monarchy. Prince George, on the cusp of adolescence, stood to benefit from a royal household that valued normality as much as tradition. Charlotte and Louis would experience a childhood balanced between duty and family. Dinners at Adelaide Cottage, or the soon-to-be invaded Forest Lodge. This was not only personal, it was institutional. The monarchy, once criticized as rigid and outdated, was revealing a new pragmatic face. Camilla's quieter presence, born of necessity, created space for Catherine's ascent. Rather than rivalry, it looked like a graceful handover. Even in retreat, Camilla's decades of service offered a blueprint: loyalty, endurance, and now legacy. The public noticed. Polls in the weeks after Charles's address showed a measurable uptick in royal approval, especially among younger demographics. To them, Catherine represented authenticity and accessibility. But uncertainties lingered. Could Camilla recover enough to return fully? Could Charles's health endure? Might William and Catherine be propelled into the throne sooner than expected? These questions kept commentators and palace watchers busy, their speculations blurring inevitability with rumor. Yet optimism carried the day. By invoking Elizabeth's memory while boldly pivoting toward the future, Charles had managed to stitch continuity into progress. The monarchy was no longer clinging to survival, was positioning itself to thrive, and at its heart stood Catherine, a woman whose unassuming grace, maternal instinct, and quiet strength redefined what it meant to prepare for the crown. She proved that duty could be lived with compassion, that tradition could evolve without breaking. Even the practical choices underscored this shift. Renovations of future homes, financed privately, signaled an institution aware of public scrutiny and eager to model authenticity. The royal family was no longer leaning solely on spectacle. It was grounding its survival in relatability, impact, and resilience. And so, the monarchy enters this new chapter with a face the world has already come to admire. Catherine, Princess of Wales, no longer simply the consort-in-waiting, but the monarchy's anchor, bridge, and future. The throne's greatest strength has always been its people. Resilient, evolving, profoundly human. For Catherine, this moment is not just preparation. It is the dawn of her defining chapter. The dawn of her defining chapter.